In the summer of 2023, something unprecedented happened in the gold markets. China stopped reporting their official gold reserves. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. For a country that had been steadily, publicly increasing their gold holdings every single month for years, this sudden blackout sent shockwaves through central banks worldwide. But here's what makes this terrifying. When China finally broke their silence in early 2024, the numbers didn't add up. They claimed they'd added roughly 225 tons of gold during the blackout period. But independent analysts tracking global gold flows, the actual physical movement of gold bars through refineries, shipping routes, and vaults, calculated something completely different. Their real purchases? Closer to 900 tons. That's a 300% discrepancy. Now you might think, okay, China's buying gold, big deal, lots of countries do that. But you're missing what's actually happening here. Because China isn't just buying gold. They're systematically, methodically, quietly building the largest gold reserve in human history, while telling the world they're doing something completely different. And when you understand why they're doing this and when they plan to use it, everything about the global financial system in 2027 starts to make horrifying sense. This isn't about backing their currency. This isn't about protecting against inflation. This is about something far more calculated. Something that will reshape who controls the world's money. And the timeline? It's already in motion. Let me show you what most economists are too afraid to say out loud. Let's go back to 2009. The world is reeling from the financial crisis. The U.S. Federal Reserve just printed trillions of dollars to bail out banks. And in a closed-door meeting in Beijing, Chinese economic strategists are watching and learning a very dangerous lesson. They realized something that would change their entire economic strategy for the next 2 decades. The lesson was this: whoever controls the reserve currency controls the world. And the U.S. had just proven they could print unlimited money, export their inflation to every other country, and suffer almost no consequences. China held over $1 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds. They'd worked for decades, manufacturing goods, building wealth, accumulating those dollars. And in a single year, the U.S. devalued all of it by 20% through money printing. China didn't just lose money, they lost power. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of complaining, instead of dumping their treasuries in anger like Russia did years later, China got quiet. They started a plan so patient, so methodical, that most Western analysts completely missed it. Phase 1, stop accumulating more dollars. Phase 2, start accumulating gold, slowly, carefully, without causing price spikes. Phase 3, build an alternative financial system. And Phase 4, that's where 2027 comes in. Because China isn't building a gold reserve to play defense. They're building a financial weapon. Every ton of gold they buy is ammunition for a monetary war most people don't even know is coming. And the genius of their strategy? They've convinced the world they're doing it for completely different reasons. Let me show you the real blueprint they're following. It's not modern. It's not Chinese. It's actually a 400-year-old European banking strategy that destroyed the Spanish Empire. In 1557, the most powerful empire on earth went bankrupt, Spain. They controlled the largest gold and silver mines in the New World. Ships loaded with precious metals crossed the Atlantic every month. The Spanish monarchy had more gold than any kingdom in history, and yet they defaulted on their debts. How does the country with the most gold go broke? Here's what happened. Spain made a fatal mistake. They believed gold was wealth, but the German and Italian bankers they owed money to understood something different. Gold isn't wealth. Gold is leverage. Those bankers, the Fuggers, the Welsers, the Genoese, they didn't hoard gold. They used it as collateral to create something far more powerful: credit. They could lend 10 times the value of their gold reserves. They financed wars, kingdoms, trade routes. While Spain sat on mountains of gold, these banking families controlled the flow of money across Europe. And when Spain needed to borrow to fund their wars, they went to these same bankers. The country with the most gold became a debtor to the people who understood how to weaponize it. Now, fast forward to today. China has been studying this exact playbook. They're not accumulating 900-plus tons of unreported gold to back their currency one-to-one, like some kind of old-fashioned gold standard. That's what amateurs think. That's what they want you to think. What they're actually building is a credibility reserve. Here's how it works in 2027. China launches their central bank digital currency, the digital Yuan, backed by gold. Not fully, maybe 20 to 30%. Just enough to say, our currency has real asset backing, unlike the dollar, which is backed by nothing but debt and military power. Suddenly, countries tired of U.S. sanctions, tired of dollar dominance, have an alternative. Nigeria, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia. They don't need to trust China, they just need to trust gold. And because China holds the gold, they control the system. But here's the part that should terrify you. This isn't even the most brilliant part of their plan. Because while everyone focuses on the gold, China's been building something else entirely. Something hidden in plain sight. Something that makes their gold stockpile look like a distraction. While the world obsesses over China's gold reserves, they've been quietly constructing the largest alternative financial infrastructure in human history. It's called CIPS, the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. Sounds boring, right? It's not. Let me explain what this actually is. Right now, if a bank in Brazil wants to send money to a bank in South Africa, it doesn't go direct. It routes through SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. And SWIFT is controlled by Western powers, headquartered in Belgium, overseen by the U.S. and European central banks, which means every international transaction, every single one, flows through a system the United States can monitor, control, and shut off. Remember when the U.S. kicked Russia out of SWIFT in 2022? That wasn't just a sanction, that was a demonstration of power. It told every country on Earth, if you cross us, we can disconnect you from the global economy. China watched that happen, and they accelerated CIPS. Now here's where the gold becomes critical. CIPS alone isn't enough to challenge the dollar. Countries won't abandon a system backed by the world's largest economy and military just for a Chinese alternative. They need a reason to trust it. They need credibility. Enter the gold. In 2027, China's plan isn't to declare a gold-backed currency and crash the dollar. That would cause chaos, war maybe. No, their strategy is far more elegant. They're going to offer something the U.S. can't, a gold-settled trade system. Here's how it works. Country A sells oil to Country B through CIPS. The transaction settles in digital yuan. But here's the key. Either country can convert those digital yuan into physical gold at a fixed rate through Chinese gold exchanges. Not as currency, as a settlement option. Suddenly, emerging markets have a choice. Trade with the U.S. in dollars, which can be printed infinitely, which can be weaponized through sanctions. Or trade through CIPS in digital yuan, which can be converted to gold, which China has stockpiled in massive quantities. The gold doesn't back the currency. The gold backs the trust. And once that trust shifts, even partially, here's what 2027 actually looks like. It's not a dramatic collapse. It's not China declaring a new gold standard while the dollar crashes overnight. It's something far more subtle and far more permanent. The world splits into two financial hemispheres. The Western sphere, dollar-dominated, SWIFT-based, backed by U.S. economic and military power. The Eastern sphere, digital yuan settled, CIPS routed, backed by gold reserves and infrastructure investment. And here's the beautiful trap China's built. Countries don't have to choose. They can operate in both systems. Saudi Arabia sells oil to Europe in dollars through SWIFT, but sells oil to China in digital yuan through CIPS with gold settlement options. Brazil trades soybeans to the U.S. in dollars, but finances infrastructure projects with Chinese gold-backed credit. No dramatic announcements, no declarations of war on the dollar, just a slow, steady shift in how the world moves money. And every year, the percentage of global trade flowing through CIPS grows. 5% in 2025, 12% in 2027, 25% by 2030. The dollar doesn't die, it just becomes regional. And that's when everything changes. Because U.S. power for the last 80 years hasn't come from military bases or technology. It's come from one thing: exorbitant privilege. The ability to print the world's reserve currency. To borrow unlimited money at low interest rates because the world needs dollars. To export inflation while importing goods. When that privilege erodes, even by 20 or 30%, the entire American economic model breaks. Social Security, Medicare, military spending, the national debt, all of it is built on the assumption that the world will keep buying treasury bonds, that the dollar will remain supreme. China's gold stockpile isn't designed to destroy that system overnight. It's designed to provide an alternative that's just trustworthy enough, just stable enough, to pull away 20 to 30% of global capital flows. And 20 to 30% is all it takes. Now here's the final piece most people miss. This isn't really about economics. It's about time. The U.S. sees this coming. The Fed knows, the Treasury knows, but they can't stop it without triggering the very crisis they're trying to avoid. If they raise interest rates to defend the dollar, they crash the economy. If they keep printing money, they accelerate the world's move away from dollars. If they try to weaponize SWIFT more aggressively, they push more countries towards CIPS. They're trapped. And China knows it. That's why the timeline is 2027. Not because of some specific event or announcement, but because that's when the infrastructure is complete. When CIPS has enough participating banks, when the digital yuan has enough international users, when the gold reserves are large enough to provide settlement credibility, and when the U.S. is politically divided enough, economically strained enough, that they can't mount a coordinated response. So what does this mean for you? If you're holding dollars, you're not going to wake up one day and find them worthless, but you might wake up and find they don't buy as much as they used to. That inflation isn't coming from money printing alone, it's coming from loss of demand for dollars internationally. If you're investing, the world is about to bifurcate in ways that create both danger and opportunity. And if you're just trying to understand why gold prices have been rising despite strong economic data, now you know. The smart money isn't buying gold because they think the economy will collapse. They're buying it because they understand what China understands. Gold isn't wealth. Gold isn't money. Gold is the bridge between the old financial order and the new one. And in 2027, that bridge becomes the most valuable piece of infrastructure on Earth. China didn't stockpile 900+ tons of unreported gold by accident. They stockpiled it because they're building a new financial empire. And they learned the lesson Spain never did. The country with the most gold doesn't win. The country that knows how to weaponize it does. The question isn't whether this plan will work. The question is whether you'll see it coming before it's already happened.